I was born in Brisbane in 1981. When I was 7, we moved to America. My parents had split up and Dad was running hotels. Mom had some friends in the States and we went over for a vacation. She found work and 1 year led to two and she eventually got remarried. We lived between New York and New Jersey. It was amazing, like what you see on TV. The kids were all running amok. It was a lot of fun, but the wrong kind of fun. Religion was part of my life growing up. I can remember Mom encouraged me to pray when I was a boy. She used to take me to church. Sometimes we go to a Catholic church. Sometimes we go to a Pentecostal. But as soon as I was old enough not to go, I didn't. I can't recall praying or thinking about anything beyond the here and now as a young man. We moved back to Australia when I was 16. Mom didn't say so at the time, but I think part of the reason we came back was me. I was on the wrong path with the kids I was hanging around. Mom told me we were coming here to Australia for a vacation. Turns out it was a one-way ticket, but she figured that was the only way to get me out of there. I moped around for a few years. I was really depressed because I wanted to go back to the States with my friends. I tried to go to school here, but the system was completely different. Within 6 months of enrolling, I dropped out. I got a job doing door-to-door marketing, the sort of thing you jump into after school with no experience. Later I worked at a bank. They were good jobs. I was married young at 22, and when my marriage ended, I went into a nosedive. I'd felt like I failed at conventional life. I didn't deal with it well, and I turned to drugs and crime. It was a bad time. I was lost. I was doing bad things. I was a typical crim. I wasn't living a good life. I wasn't happy with myself. In 2007, I was sentenced to 10 months in prison for drug-related offenses. To be honest, it was really good for me at the time. I wasn't very healthy at all. I was staying up for 2 or 3 nights at a time, sometimes more, partying and not eating well. So when I got locked up, it was good to have food and sleep and get healthy again. Jail opened my eyes. I wasn't anywhere as bad as I thought it would be, but it's not a goal you set yourself to end up there. It's not a wonderful place or anything. When I got out, I got straight back into it. I didn't even pause. There wasn't even a moment that I wasn't running amok, doing the same thing with the same people. But somewhere along the way, doing all these bad things, I became more interested in my spiritual self, who I was as a person and my character. I realized I had become the worst version of myself. I started changing old habits, being honest with myself and other people. I started going to a Baptist church down on the Gold Coast and got involved in feeding needy people in the area. We cook up a lunch on Thursdays. Doing things like that made me realize that it wasn't that hard to change. I could change. It felt good to surround myself with nice religious people who were doing good things, as opposed to the people I knew with no religion who were doing really bad things to each other, selling drugs or harming each other for drugs or money. It was light compared to total darkness. I believed in God, but theologically, I didn't feel satisfied with Christianity. In the back of my mind, I'd always wanted to read the Quran and go to a mosque. One day, when I was having a really bad day, I felt like I needed to reach out to someone. I found a phone number for a cab driver named Mohammed, who I'd met a couple of weeks earlier. I called him and asked him if I could go to the mosque with him. He asked me why, and I said, "Look, I need guidance. I need help." So he picked me up and took me there that evening. And that was it. I spoke with one of the imams, and I watched the brothers pray and had this total feeling of serenity within myself. It was that feeling of coming home, of belonging. I gave my Shahada, the testament of faith, that night, and everything changed. I no longer had this desire to use, and I've been clean now for 5 years. It changed my entire life. It gave me the means and the rules and the path to follow to achieve what I'd set out to achieve a year before I converted, which was to strive to become the best version of myself. When you're doing that on your own with no rules to follow, it can be a tough process. Part of the appeal of Islam was the strength of character of the Muslim people that I'd met. The fact that they didn't use drugs and drink at all was something that really appealed to me. It was the polar opposite of how I'd been living my life and seemed to require such strength of character. As a young man, I was always drawn towards strength. 3 months after I converted, my mom converted as well. She has been a massive supporter of anything positive I do in my life, but in this instance, she also believes as I believe, and therefore she practices as I do.